Ethan took a deep breath before stepping onto the gleaming deck of the Celestia, the state-of-the-art spaceship he had been assigned to only a week prior. The corridor, lit by a gentle, ambient glow, seemed to pulse with anticipation. He could sense the hum of power radiating from the craft's reactors, as if the ship possessed a sentient heart. This was no ordinary vessel, nor was this any simple mission. Even on the transport shuttle that had ferried him here, he had heard whispers of groundbreaking technology and undisclosed experiments. Nevertheless, the promise of a new beginning, the tantalizing possibility of grandeur and adventure, filled his every step with excitement. He had been chosen for his piloting skill, a reputation built upon years spent navigating asteroid fields, war-torn skies, and uncharted nebulae. Yet in this moment, all that experience barely steadied the thrill coursing through him. As he proceeded down the corridor, the pristine white walls seemed to stretch before him in subtle arcs, leading him to the heart of the ship. The design was nothing short of magnificent. Floor panels floated just an inch above a deeper layer of technology, which thrummed softly like a beating pulse. Overhead, a translucent ceiling offered glimpses of starlit space whenever external cameras activated their view screens. It was a constant reminder that they were voyaging in the great dark, crossing boundaries few dared to breach. A voice echoed through the hallway, calm and assured. "Welcome aboard the Celestia, Ethan Carter. Please proceed to the briefing room at your earliest convenience. First Officer Lyra Meradial will be expecting you." The voice belonged to the ship's AI, a caretaker and overseer for the countless systems that kept the Celestia operational. Ethan inhaled sharply. He had read about First Officer Lyra Meradial, or at least glimpsed her personnel file. She was rumored to be from the far-flung star system of Erethen, an alien species known for its uncanny intellect and distinctive, emerald-hued skin. But official files only said so much. The rest was rumor, hearsay, or perhaps even myth. Some spoke of her eyes, glowing gold like twin suns, that seemed able to see right through a man's soul. Others mentioned her commanding presence, how she could quell a room of rowdy recruits with a single glance. He turned down a wide corridor, each step resonating with the subtle hum beneath the floor. Drawing near to the briefing room's doors, he tried to calm his pounding heart. As they slid apart with a gentle hiss, he was met by a vast chamber. Circular in design, it felt like a grand amphitheater of knowledge, with tiered seating arranged around a central console that projected star maps and holographic mission logs. The subdued lighting made the glowing displays appear even more vivid, each star in the projection shining like a gem suspended in darkness. There, standing with her back turned to him, was Lyra Meradial. She wore a sleek, form-fitting uniform in midnight blue, which accentuated the gentle glow of her emerald skin. Her slender hands danced over the control panel, manipulating the holographic interface with a fluid grace that bespoke years of familiarity with advanced technology. Ethan cleared his throat softly, but before he could speak, Lyra pivoted. Her face was angular, regal, marked by refined features common to her species. But her eyes, indeed, were more enthralling than the rumors had suggested, golden irises that seemed lit by an internal flame. They sparkled with curiosity and intelligence, and when they settled upon him, he had to fight the urge to look away, overwhelmed by their intensity. "Lieutenant Ethan Carter," she began, her voice smooth yet resonant. "Welcome to the Celestia." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment, and he felt a sudden warmth in his chest, as though the air between them crackled with an unknown energy. "I trust your journey here was uneventful?" He inclined his head, swallowing the dryness in his throat. "Thank you, First Officer. The journey was fine. I'm honored to be here." Despite his nerves, his voice remained steady, a testament to years of disciplined training. Lyra nodded, gesturing for him to join her at the console. "We leave dock in a matter of hours, heading into the Helion sector. This mission is of utmost importance to the Federation." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "And I'm told you're one of our finest pilots. I've reviewed your records. I believe your experience will be invaluable once we reach our rendezvous." Ethan followed her gaze to the swirling hologram of the Helion sector, where cosmic storms and nebulous anomalies were charted in menacing shades of red and violet. It was widely regarded as one of the most challenging regions of space to navigate, rife with gravitational eddies and unpredictable bursts of solar radiation. "I look forward to proving myself," he replied. Her lips curved into a small, enigmatic smile, revealing perhaps a hint of amusement at his confidence, or maybe admiration. "Confidence is good," she said softly, "but do not underestimate what lies ahead." For a fleeting moment, Ethan thought he saw something else in her eyes, a flicker of emotion that felt almost personal. A reflection of curiosity, perhaps, or even attraction. He quickly banished the notion from his mind, trying to stay professional. Yet from that instant, a seed of something new began to take root in him. That evening, after stowing his belongings in his private quarters, Ethan decided to acquaint himself further with the ship. The Celestia was larger than any spacecraft he had ever served on, its corridors branching like the limbs of an ancient tree, leading to specialized labs, crew quarters, recreation centers, and observation decks. As he strolled toward one such observation deck, drawn by the promise of panoramic starlight, he reflected on his brief exchange with Lyra. Her presence lingered in his mind, accompanied by a subtle but intriguing tension in his gut. He had encountered numerous alien species in his career, yet never before had he experienced such a jolt of fascination, or dared to wonder if that fascination might be mutual. The observation deck was a marvel. Its walls and ceiling were completely transparent, revealing the endless expanse of space beyond. Stationed in orbit around a cerulean planet, the ship's vantage point offered a spectacular view of swirling clouds and shimmering oceans. Ethan took a few steps forward, placing a hand gently against the transparent barrier, half expecting his fingers to pass through the emptiness. The technology was so advanced that it seemed to defy logic. "You seem entranced by the view." The voice that broke the stillness was gentle, yet arresting. Ethan turned to see Lyra a short distance away, arms folded in quiet observation. Her posture was poised, and there was a subtle softness in her expression that contrasted with her earlier, more formal demeanor. "I find this part of the ship incredible," Ethan confessed, feeling an odd shiver run through him. Back on Earth, starlight was a distant concept, something you read about or glimpsed through telescopes. But here, it's all around us, so immediate and humbling. Lyra stepped closer, her golden eyes flickering with reflected starlight. "I felt similarly when I first experienced deep space. Arathan's skies were often stormy, filled with electric phenomena that made the stars more elusive. When I left home, the vastness of the cosmos reminded me both of how small we are and how grand existence can be." He studied her, noting the subtle lines of her face, the shape of her cheeks, and the soft luminescence of her skin. A quiet question formed in his mind. "Do you miss it?" "Arathan." She let her gaze roam over the swirling planet below, contemplating her answer. "Sometimes, but much of what I cherish there is gone. War, conquest, the usual tragedies that plague the cosmos. The Federation offered me a chance to see the universe, to protect what I could, to explore possibilities beyond the ruin of my homeworld." There was a soft sorrow in her voice. She paused, as if uncertain she wished to reveal more. Before Ethan could press the topic, she changed it. "I trust you found your quarters satisfactory?" He nodded, respecting her boundary. "Better than I'm used to be honest. The last ship I served on was nowhere near as luxurious. The bunk was practically a shelf in a closet." She smiled at that, nodding in empathy. "I know the feeling. My first assignment was a cramped freighter with a faulty life support system. I can't say I missed the endless rattling or the scalding air recycled through aging filters." They shared a small laugh. For a moment, the cosmic panorama served as the perfect backdrop for two strangers forging a tentative bond. A charged silence fell between them, the air dense with unspoken questions, wonder, and the faintest trace of longing. Before Ethan could articulate his thoughts, before he could question whether this moment was appropriate, or if he even had the right to indulge in such curiosity, Lyra inclined her head politely. "We have a big day ahead. The Helion sector is no small task, and your expertise will be in high demand. Best rest while you can." Her parting words were accompanied by a gentle, parting glance that left Ethan teetering between respect and an unshakable attraction. As she walked away, the soft, musical click of her boots against the deck reverberated in his ears. He exhaled, realizing he had been holding his breath. The quietness that followed was filled by the low hum of the ship's engine. Alone again, he turned back to the view of the planet below, his thoughts spiraling in myriad directions. He had joined the Celestia for adventure, for prestige, for the chance to pilot one of the most sophisticated crafts in the galaxy. Yet here he was, enthralled not by the advanced reactors or cutting-edge flight controls, but by the enigma that was Lyra Meradial. The next day dawned in an artificially created cycle of light aboard the Celestia. Ethan rose early, anticipation thrumming through his veins. He donned his flight suit, the Federation's insignia emblazoned on his shoulder, and made his way to the command bridge. This central nerve center spanned 2 decks, with transparent screens swirling around operators who performed constant scans of space. The hum of technology was as much an entity as any living being, and the symmetrical design, full of carefully placed consoles, lent an air of solemn professionalism. He stepped onto the elevated platform where the pilot's station lay, custom-built for advanced maneuvers. The seat, designed to mesh with the slightest nuances of a pilot's body, welcomed him with a supportive cradle. Panels surrounded him in a half-moon arc, each displaying readouts of engine thrust, hull integrity, sensor arrays, and navigational charts. Ethan's fingers brushed the controls, and a surge of familiarity coursed through him. This was his element, the place where every nerve in his body came to life, responding to the ship's subtle energies. Lyra and Captain Soren Voss stood at the central command console. The captain was an older man, carrying the distinguished scars of past campaigns on his face. His hair had silver streaks, yet his voice was strong and decisive. "Lieutenant Carter," he greeted, inclining his head with calm authority. "We are about to depart orbit. Prepare for thruster ignition." "Aye, Captain," Ethan responded, setting his hands over the controls. He heard Lyra's voice in his earpiece, feeding him precise instructions and data from the ship's sensors. Despite the swirl of information, he remained calm, focusing entirely on the near-symphonic dance required to lift a colossal ship into the unknown. The Celestia began to move, engines rumbling in resonant harmony. As the planet's gravitational pull loosened its hold, they glided toward the star-strewn fabric of space. A gentle tremor passed through the decks, but Ethan compensated with deft manipulations, ensuring a smooth trajectory. Lyra's guidance was unwavering, her voice a steady tether anchoring him amidst the cosmic sea. With a final lurch, the Celestia broke free and shot forward into starlit infinity. For hours, they maintained a steady pace, crossing the boundaries of the Helion sector. Ethereal streams of cosmic dust drifted like spectral ribbons outside the windows, illuminated by distant suns. Every so often, the ship would tremble when encountering unexpected gravitational fluctuations, but Ethan's skill kept them in stable flight. The rest of the bridge crew, from navigators to tactical officers, worked tirelessly to chart a course that avoided the worst of the swirling anomalies. As they ventured deeper, the energy signatures on the scanners began to spike. The Helion sector's famed storms were stirring, cosmic storms that twisted solar winds into labyrinthine corridors of charged particles. On the panoramic display ahead, ribbons of violet lightning crackled across the darkness, forming ephemeral curtains of shimmering light. It was both mesmerizing and dangerous, a testament to the raw power of nature in the vacuum of space. A tense hush fell over the bridge. Captain Voss issued new directives, instructing the crew to switch to specialized scanning arrays, seeking safe passage. The star map flickered with warnings, red icons that marked unstable pockets of space. Ethan could feel his pulse quicken, even as his focus sharpened. This was the thrill of piloting, danger balanced upon the razor's edge of skill. Lyra's voice cut through the tension, calm yet urgent. "Carter, angle us to bearing 035. Thrust at 60%, stable altitude. Watch for subspace distortions at sector grid E7. He complied, fingers dancing over the controls with precision. The Celestia swayed lightly, as if brushing against invisible currents, then straightened out on the new heading. For a moment, all seemed well. Then, without warning, the ship lurched violently. A wave of distorted gravity gripped the hull, rattling the entire superstructure. Sparks flew from some consoles, and alarms blared in sharp protest. Ethan gritted his teeth, fighting to maintain control. "We've been caught in a gravitational eddy," shouted a voice from Tactical, while screens flared with chaotic readouts. Another lurch sent some crew members staggering. Lyra's melodic yet firm voice resonated. "Compensate by adjusting forward thrusters to negative thrust, 2-second burst, now." He followed her directive, reversing thrust momentarily. The abrupt shift of momentum collided with the gravitational distortion, creating a shock wave that rocked the Celestia once more. Yet it worked. The ship broke free, drifting into relatively calmer space. Emergency lights continued to blink, but the immediate threat had subsided. A chorus of relieved exhalations passed through the bridge. Captain Voss, stoic but clearly stressed, surveyed his crew. Status report. Engineers scrambled to assess the damage, rattling off minor system faults and a few casualties. Fortunately, the hull remained intact, and critical functions seemed stable. Lyra's gaze flicked to Ethan. For a brief second, their eyes met across the bustle of the command deck. He could feel the silent connection, gratitude, respect, and the undercurrent of something warmer than standard professionalism. The captain nodded in approval. "Excellent work, all of you. Lieutenant Carter, that was some fine piloting. Now let's get ourselves squared away before the next wave hits. We still have a rendezvous to keep." Over the following days, the Celestia pressed further into the Helion sector. Repeated navigational hazards forced them to remain ever vigilant, often requiring Ethan to spend long hours at the pilot's helm. Lyra was perpetually at his side, aiding with readouts, offering tactical suggestions, and occasionally sharing quiet moments of mutual relief whenever they navigated a particularly treacherous vortex or overcame malfunctioning systems. In time, the tension and danger fostered a bond among the crew, none more so than between Ethan and Lyra. Their conversations extended beyond mission parameters and into more personal territory. Each passing day, their interplay became laced with subtle flirtation, a lingering smile, an affectionate remark about the other's prowess under pressure, a momentary brushing of hands as they examined a holographic readout together. It was late on the 5th day when Ethan found himself in one of the ship's quiet corridors, leaning against a bulkhead, eyes closed, trying to gather his thoughts after yet another harrowing shift. He heard a soft rustle of fabric and sensed a presence beside him. "Tiring day." Lyra's voice, gentle yet laced with concern, reached his ears. He opened his eyes, finding her standing close, her posture relaxed. The corridor lights gave a subtle highlight to her features, accentuating the faint glow of her skin. He offered a weary grin. "You could say that. Another gravitational eddy nearly tore us apart. The main thrusters overheated, and navigational systems have been on the blink for hours. Still, I'd rather face these challenges than go back to ferrying cargo on small freighters." She inclined her head in understanding, the corners of her lips quirking. "So you do have a thirst for the extraordinary, don't you?" He chuckled softly. "I suppose so. But it's not just the adrenaline. It's the sense of purpose, of contributing to something bigger than myself." He paused, letting his gaze drift to her golden irises. "And maybe it's the company, too." Her expression flickered, revealing a moment of vulnerability, as if she wrestled with an inner conflict. "I understand that feeling, Ethan. I've felt more alive these last few days than I have in a long time." A subtle warmth coursed through him. He decided to be bold. "Lyra, he began, only to pause when the corridor lights flickered. A brief moment of disorientation overtook them both, as though the world around them had stuttered. He blinked, trying to regain his composure. Something felt off. She looked around, her brow furrowing. "Did you feel that?" He nodded, unsettled. "Like a glitch in the ship's power?" The lights stabilized. The corridor returned to its usual, calm luminescence. Yet the momentary disruption lingered on his mind, haunting in a way he could not explain. Setting aside his discomfort, he turned back to her. "Perhaps we should both try to get some rest. We've got a big day tomorrow." Another sector crossing. She exhaled softly, a small sign of relief and perhaps disappointment that their moment had been broken. "Agreed," she answered, though her eyes spoke of unspoken questions. With a gentle nod of good night, she slipped away, disappearing into the labyrinthine corridors. Ethan remained, his thoughts swirling like so many cosmic eddies. He couldn't shake the feeling that something else, something deeper than malfunctioning power lines, had caused that brief flicker. Yet he was too exhausted to dwell on it. With a final glance around, he made his way to his quarters, intending to surrender to sleep and the elusive dreams waiting there. Life aboard the Celestia was a precarious balance between routine and emergency. Over the next week, the crew faced repeated navigational anomalies, system glitches, and the unrelenting storms of the Helion sector. A palpable sense of tension settled over everyone, not just from the danger, but from a growing suspicion that something was fundamentally wrong. Strange power surges, flickers in the ship's lighting, and momentary lapses in the AI's efficiency. Most wrote it off as the sector's interference, an understandable rationale given the cosmic havoc swirling around them. But Ethan couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling nesting in the pit of his stomach. He noticed it in the subtle changes in Lyra as well. At times, she seemed almost distracted, responding a heartbeat slower than usual, her gaze drifting as though she were listening to some distant, unheard signal. It all came to a head during a routine reconnaissance mission outside the Celestia. Ethan and a small team, including Lyra, boarded a shuttle to investigate a derelict vessel adrift in the sector's perilous realm. The battered hull bore markings of some unknown design, possibly from an older civilization. As they drew closer, the swirling cosmic storms illuminated the vessel's scorched exterior. He piloted the shuttle with his characteristic finesse, weaving through the drift of debris that floated like ghostly confetti. Inside the darkened corridors of the derelict ship, flashlights cut through a haze of floating dust. There was no sign of life, at least, not any they recognized. Panels were torn apart, cables dangled like metallic vines, and the occasional hiss of venting air reminded them that the old hull still held pockets of atmosphere. "Something's deeply unsettling here," Lyra said, her voice echoing in the gloom. Her golden eyes, though partially concealed by the visor of her helmet, flickered with an otherworldly glow. Ethan felt an ominous chill. He had boarded wrecks before, but something about this one felt different, as though invisible eyes were watching their every move. The small team split up to check different compartments. He and Lyra ventured deeper, guided by faint signals from a half-functional console that beeped sporadically. They paused before a doorway sealed by an emergency lockdown. The panel beside it was flickering, shorting out in irregular bursts. "Let me see if I can bypass it," Ethan muttered, producing a handheld device from his belt. He began interfacing with the derelict system, his eyes narrowing at the cryptic readouts. Lyra stood watch, her posture tense. Suddenly, the ship seemed to convulse, a reverberation that rattled bulkheads. Her voice rose in alarm. "Ethan, hurry!" A swirl of lights danced across the corridor, accompanied by a faint, electronic hum. For an instant, the world seemed to glitch. Ethan thought he saw the corridor flicker between states, like overlapping images, the derelict vessel's cold, dank corridor merging with something else entirely, something that resembled the pristine halls of the Celestia. His heart raced. Was this a hallucination from the cosmic radiation, or was something more bizarre occurring? With a final tap, he overrode the lockdown. The door slid open, revealing a small chamber lined with banks of archaic computers. The monitors flickered to life, casting an eerie glow on the walls. In the center of the room stood a pod-like structure, half open, cables snaking in and out of its base. Although alien in design, it bore some resemblance to stasis chambers used by the Federation centuries ago. Lyra stepped forward, her emerald fingers hovering over the surface of the pod. A shimmer of recognition crossed her features, an unsettling familiarity. This technology, it's extremely old, but the design is reminiscent of advanced neural interfaces, she whispered. Ethan knelt beside a control panel, scanning the readout. Most of the text was indecipherable, but occasional fragments translated to protocol, neural overlap, simulation stabilizer. The words sent a chill down his spine. Neural overlap? Simulation stabilizer? Lyra, what is this place? She shook her head, her expression clouded. I'm not certain, but it's possible that this vessel was part of some experiment, perhaps even an attempt to create or maintain an artificial reality. A flicker behind them caught Ethan's eye. He turned, swallowing hard when he found a console screen displaying a half-formed image of him. It was a ghostly silhouette, a glitching silhouette wearing an outdated Federation uniform. Next to it was a wavering image that looked like an era-then figure, tall, emerald-skinned, eyes glowing with energy. Lyra gasped, stepping closer to the monitor, transfixed by the bizarre reflection. Suddenly, the lights surged, and a thunderous crash echoed through the ship. The corridor behind them trembled as debris rained down from the ceiling. "We need to leave now," Ethan barked. Their suit's intercom crackled with urgent updates from the rest of the team, reporting structural failures and increased storm activity outside. With a shared look of alarm, they bolted out of the chamber, racing back toward the shuttle. Along the way, the corridor seemed to ripple again, momentarily transforming into a pristine Federation hallway. A wave of nausea hit Ethan, forcing him to steady himself against a wall. Lyra stumbled, her face contorted by confusion and what seemed like rising panic. When the flicker passed, they were once more in the derelict's broken corridors, the floor littered with debris, the air thick with dust. They pressed on, each step driven by adrenaline and terror. At last, they reached the shuttle, where the rest of the team had already strapped in. What the hell happened in there? "The structural integrity is collapsing," one of their comrades shouted over the roar of failing systems. Ethan took the helm, firing the shuttle's engines. With a burst of thrust, they broke away from the disintegrating vessel, escaping into the swirling gloom of the Helion sector. Before them, fragments of the derelict ship were swallowed by cosmic turbulence, twisting and bending in the swirling vortex. The moment they cleared the worst of it, Ethan punched the throttle, and they soared back toward the Celestia. Throughout the entire escape, he could feel Lyra's eyes on him, as if they shared a question neither could bring themselves to voice. What if reality is not what it seems? Back aboard the Celestia, the salvage team's report caused a stir. Captain Voss and the ship's scientists scrambled to parse the data, but many of the readings were corrupted, the translations incomplete. Rumors flew among the crew, speculations about simulation technology, illusions, or even mental manipulation. Although official statements tried to quell the fears, Ethan sensed an undercurrent of doubt throughout the corridors. And Lyra, who once walked the halls with poised confidence, now appeared haunted, her golden eyes distant, as though she were trying to piece together a puzzle that eluded her understanding. One evening, while off duty, Ethan found her in the observation deck again, standing alone by the transparent wall, gazing at the swirling storms outside. He approached, noticing the tension in her posture, the tightness of her jaw. "Lyra, are you all right?" he asked gently, placing a hand on the railing nearby. She turned, her expression betraying turmoil. "I'm not certain. Since we boarded that wreck, I've had flashes, visions of corridors that aren't the Celestia's, yet I see them overlaying our own decks. Sometimes it's as simple as lights flickering, but other times, it's more, like I'm seeing an entire different ship. For a moment, it's so real I can hardly breathe." Her words struck a chord within him. He, too, had sensed those ripples, glimpses of alternate corridors, fleeting impressions that challenged the bedrock of his perceptions. "I've experienced something similar," he admitted, a low hush in his voice. "Sometimes it's just a flicker, but every time, I feel more and more convinced that something is off." She exhaled, relief mingling with fear in her eyes. "Then I'm not imagining this. The data we retrieved mentioned a neural overlap, a simulation. Could we be caught in someone else's design? Or is it some form of cosmic phenomenon?" A swirl of anxiety lanced through him. The thought that their entire reality, the Celestia, their mission, the Federation, might be a fabrication, a digital dream, or an elaborate psychic trap, was nearly incomprehensible. If that's the case, how do we break free? And do we even want to, if everything we care about is inside this illusion? The question hung heavily between them. Lyra closed her eyes, a single tear glistening on the edge of her lashes before rolling down her emerald cheek. She wiped it away hastily, her composure faltering. "Ethan, she began, her voice trembling. "I've found something here. Something meaningful." Her gaze met his with unshielded vulnerability. "You must feel it too. This connection between us. Is it real, or part of an illusion?" He felt his heart clench. In that moment, raw honesty was the only recourse. He reached out, gently cradling her hand in his. The warmth of her skin was genuine, the tremor of her breath undeniably real. "I don't care if this is some elaborate projection," he whispered, voice husky. "What I feel, it's real to me, and if it's real to you, then that's all that matters right now." She drew closer, allowing her head to rest against his shoulder for a brief, tender moment. The tension in her muscles began to ease, replaced by a fragile intimacy. They stood together, silent, looking out at the swirling cosmic storms that raged beyond the glass, both wondering if that storm was a reflection of the uncertainty within their own hearts. Eventually, Lyra pulled back, her eyes glimmering with determination. "We have to find the truth," she said softly, "no matter where it leads us." He nodded, resolute. "We will." After that night, they became partners in investigation, each using their position on the ship to gather clues about the mysterious glitch that seemed to be unraveling their perception of reality. During off hours, they rendezvoused in hidden corners of the ship, exchanging information gleaned from overheard conversations, encrypted data logs, or the salvage team's research. At first, they found little beyond technical jargon and scientific speculation. Most of the ship's crew still attributed the anomalies to Helian's cosmic interference. But as time wore on, the random flickers increased, and more people began to whisper about the possibility of an elaborate simulation. One crucial breakthrough arrived through Dr. Holden, the ship's lead scientist, who had been meticulously examining the data from the derelict. Late one night, with the lighting reduced to minimal levels, Ethan and Lyra snuck into the lab to meet Dr. Holden. The tall, bespectacled scientist was pacing anxiously around a holographic display, which spun with complex data streams. "I've compared the energy signatures from that ancient vessel to the anomalies we've been experiencing on the Celestia," he explained, face drawn in concentrated worry. "It's frighteningly similar. Both exhibit patterns that suggest a high-level manipulation of quantum fields." Lyra's brow furrowed, her arms folded. "Are you saying the entire Helion sector's cosmic storms are orchestrated by some advanced technology?" Dr. Holden paused, choosing his words carefully. "Not the storms themselves. Those have always been present, natural phenomena. But something is using them as a cover, or a conduit. Look here." He pointed to a readout of wave signatures, each spike and trough indicating a glitch. "Whenever we experience these flickers, we detect a corresponding surge in localized quantum distortion, almost as if our reality is momentarily being overwritten." Ethan leaned forward, heart pounding. "So, the illusions, or the alternate corridors we keep seeing, are overlapping with our reality, forced into existence by these surges?" "That's my hypothesis." Dr. Holden's eyes gleamed with urgency. "Which means, if we want answers, we need to find the source of these distortions. Tracing them across the sector is difficult due to the cosmic interference, but I've narrowed down a location, a remote point near the center of Helian's largest storm system. If there's a generator or some advanced device operating there, it could be the key to unraveling the entire simulation." Lyra and Ethan exchanged a weighted look. The center of Helian's storms was deemed nearly impassable, a chaos of gravitational shifts and swirling cosmic flares that could tear a lesser ship to pieces. Even the Celestia, for all its advanced engineering, might face extreme peril. Yet if that was where the truth lay, they had to attempt it. A hush fell over them. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "We have to convince the captain to chart a course. If we can find this device, we might be able to end the illusions, restore normal reality." Dr. Holden nodded in agreement, although the fear on his face was evident. "I'll compile the data. But be warned, this is unprecedented technology we're dealing with. If it's powerful enough to alter our perception of reality, who knows what else it can do." They parted ways quietly. As Ethan and Lyra left the lab, they felt the weight of destiny upon their shoulders. If indeed they were living in a dream, or an elaborate lie, then only by braving the storm could they finally wake up. Convincing Captain Voss proved no small feat initially. He dismissed the theory as speculative. But as the anomalies increased and Dr. Holden presented a meticulous breakdown of the data, the captain's skepticism eroded. Reluctantly, he agreed to a course correction toward the storm's heart. The journey would be perilous, but the potential stakes, an entire false reality, were too significant to ignore. Murmurs spread through the crew, and tension grew each day. They drew closer to the storm's epicenter. Ethan spent his time rehearsing every possible flight scenario, preparing for gravitational anomalies, lightning surges, and sensor blind spots. Lyra, acting in her capacity as first officer, coordinated the ship's overall readiness, ensuring that each department stood prepared for the worst. Despite the flurry of professional activities, stolen moments between them remained. Their bond, forged in mutual courage and affection, was a solace in the face of the unknown. A gentle brush of fingers in a corridor, a shared meal during which they exchanged determined, hopeful smiles. These small intimacies reminded them why they fought so hard to uncover the truth. At last, the day came. The swirling vortex that defined the heart of Helian storms filled every view screen, an unfathomable, rotating abyss flecked with crackling arcs of cosmic lightning. Turbulence seized the Celestia, forcing Ethan and the navigation team to wrestle with the controls. The hull groaned under relentless pressure, and repeated alarms clamored like frantic sirens. "Steady, steady," Captain Voss' voice boomed across the command deck. "Carter, keep us on that heading." "Aye, sir," Ethan shouted back, sweat dotting his forehead. The console before him displayed a swirl of chaotic sensor readings, half of them unreadable due to interference. He relied on instincts honed over countless flights, responding to each jolt and sway with finely tuned reflexes. Lyra stood beside him, reading advanced storm metrics from her station. "We've got gravitational flux approaching critical levels. We have to thread through the least turbulent corridor, bearing 257. He angled the Celestia accordingly, weaving through swirling eddies of cosmic energy. Each successful maneuver brought them closer to the raging center, where Dr. Holden predicted they would find the heart of the quantum distortions. The entire vessel vibrated under the onslaught, but it pressed on. Suddenly, the glitching phenomenon intensified. Lights across the bridge flickered, screens displayed double images, and the sense of disorientation struck Ethan like a physical blow. For a second, he saw an entirely different command deck, narrower, with archaic equipment. Where Captain Voss stood, a different figure flickered in and out of view. Where Lyra stood, an era-then woman in a tattered uniform overlapped her image. The entire scene wavered, threatening to unmoor his senses. "Ethan," Lyra's voice cut through the chaos, anchoring him in the present. He fought the flicker, focusing on the real controls under his fingers, or at least the controls of the reality he knew. With a defiant roar, he pulled the ship into a tighter loop, threading it between swirling energy arcs that lashed at the hull like cosmic whips. In a sudden swirl of motion, the Celestia burst into a pocket of relative calm. Space seemed to shimmer around them, and the chaotic interference dropped significantly. Ahead, beyond the swirl of flickering phenomena, they beheld an astonishing sight. A massive station or construct, partially obscured by churning storm clouds. A ring of pulsing lights encircled a central spire that emitted a purple beam into the void. "Magnify," Captain Voss barked, and the main display zoomed in, revealing intricate layers of alien machinery. Dr. Holden, on the science station, exclaimed in awe, "That must be the device generating the quantum distortions." The ring's surface crackled with energy, a mesmerizing interplay of violet and blue arcs. As they drew nearer, glitching artifacts intensified in the ship, flashing like bursts of static across the hull. Ethan winced as reality wavered once more, so strongly that for a full second, he felt as if he was somewhere else entirely, some hidden lab or control chamber. Then, just as abruptly, the Celestia reasserted itself around him. "Stabilize our position," the captain commanded, "and prepare a strike team. If we can't disable that device remotely, we'll do it in person." Lyra's gaze locked with Ethan's. They both understood. This would be the crux of their mission, the crossroads between discovering the truth and securing their freedom, or succumbing to illusions forever. The strike team, composed of Ethan, Lyra, Dr. Holden, and a small squad of security, boarded a shuttle and navigated the short distance to the alien station's docking bay. Alarms on the Celestia rang ceaselessly, warning of rising storm activity, but they had come too far to turn back. Upon landing, the team stepped into a cavernous chamber filled with pulsing columns of light. The architecture was elegant yet foreboding, an unearthly blend of metal and swirling energy. Panels of unknown script lined the walls, and overhead, the flicker of glitching reality continued to distort vision. Proceeding with caution, they followed Dr. Holden's scanner, which led them through twisting corridors, each lined with humming conduits that sparked with subdued surges of cosmic power. At intervals, the team paused, disoriented by illusions that overlapped their environment. Sometimes they glimpsed battered corridors from the ancient derelict, other times a sleek interior that looked centuries ahead of Federation design. The lines between real and false blurred with each step. At last, they arrived at the central chamber. A colossal device dominated the space, an immense ring contraption that spun slowly around a core spire of pulsing violet light. Energy crackled in rhythmic surges, and the floor vibrated with each pulse. Smaller consoles encircled the ring, each manned by mechanical arms that adjusted cryptic controls. "This is it," Dr. Holden breathed, scanning the device. His display showed frantic readings, spiking off the chart. "The quantum manipulator that's generating all the distortions." Ethan, heart hammering, surveyed the surroundings. "Can we shut it down?" The scientist nodded, though his face was grim. "In theory, if we disrupt the power core, the distortions should cease. But we risk a catastrophic backlash. If the device overloads, the explosion could rip a hole in subspace." Lyra approached a nearby console, studying the glyphs. Even through her confusion, she seemed guided by a distant memory, as though her era-then heritage hinted at an understanding. "We might be able to power it down slowly, reversing the overlap until the illusions are peeled away. But we'd need to be careful." The security team fanned out, setting up a defensive perimeter. The station groaned, and the flickering illusions intensified, as if reacting to their presence. In rapid succession, reality glitched. Ethan thought he saw figures from distant corners of the galaxy. Some looked like Federation officers, others like unknown alien species, all partially transparent. Echoes of voices reverberated in the air, a cacophony of overlapping realities. Without warning, an energy surge lashed out from the central ring. A crackling arc struck a security officer, sending him crashing into a wall. The man collapsed, unconscious. Lyra shouted for medical assistance, but the flickering illusions drowned out her words. Another surge erupted, threatening to engulf them all. "No time," Ethan yelled. "We have to act now." Dr. Holden frantically tapped at his handheld device, which synced with the ring's control panel. "I'll try to initiate a system override. Get to the ring's main terminal. There should be a manual shutdown. But you'll have to interface directly." Lyra nodded, scanning the environment. There, on the far side of the chamber, a raised platform overlooked the spinning ring. Two bridging catwalks extended from their current position, each unsteady from the pulses of energy. "That must be the terminal," she pointed. "Ethan, cover me." They sprinted together, weaving through arcs of energy that snaked across the air like living serpents. One catwalk gave way, collapsing in a shower of sparks, forcing them onto the second path. Another wave of glitching illusions struck, momentarily making the catwalk appear as a shaky rope bridge over a chasm of swirling starlight. Ethan's stomach lurched, but he pressed on, trusting his instincts over his confused eyes. Their footsteps pounded on metal, or something that felt like metal, while pulses of energy hammered the station's foundations. They reached the control console, a pulsing mass of alien glyphs etched into a circular interface. Lyra tore off a protective plate, revealing crystalline components that glowed with internal power. "I'll need a moment to decipher the meltdown sequence," she said over the roaring energies. As she worked, Ethan stood guard, knees bent, bracing against the violent tremors. Each glitch hammered his senses. The station flickered, revealing glimpses of other places, a Federation lab, an era-then citadel, even the observation deck of the Celestia. It was as though space and time were colliding in this singular point. Then, amid the chaos, he felt an overwhelming presence, an intangible force aware of their intrusion. It pressed upon his mind, intangible yet potent, projecting an echoing voice that resonated in his skull. "Why do you seek to destroy this realm?" The voice seemed to ask. "Is your reality so different from the illusions you cling to?" A shudder passed through him. as if the question forced him to confront the precarious line between the real and the conjured. But then he remembered the fear in Lyra's eyes, the determination in her stance, the bond they had forged. Illusion or not, our connection is real. Lyra cried out, her body tense with concentration. I'm keying in a shutdown sequence, but the system is resisting. It's like the device is alive. Dr. Holden's voice crackled over the comm. We're running out of time. The meltdown probability is rising. Energy arcs danced around them, scalding the air and sending sparks showering down. A cluster of them narrowly missed Ethan, causing him to stumble backward. Lyra gritted her teeth, continuing to manipulate the crystalline components. At last, she found the correct sequence. A panel slid open, revealing a pulsing core of luminous energy. This is it, she cried. If I disconnect the core, it should shut down, but will face a feedback surge. He rushed to her side, placing a hand on hers. Let's do it together. In unison, they reached into the pulsating core, each holding a portion of the device's crystalline conduit. With a jolt that rattled their teeth, they tore the connectors free. A pulse of raw energy tore through the chamber, hurling them off their feet. Ethan rolled across the platform, ears ringing, vision blurred. For a moment, he thought he saw the Celestia flicker into nothingness, replaced by a vast, unrecognizable emptiness. Then reality snapped back, or perhaps into a new alignment. Lights dimmed, the swirling arcs faded, and the ring slowed its spinning motion until it came to a standstill. A heavy stillness fell over the station, broken only by the ragged breathing of the strike team. He crawled over to Lyra, heart pounding in terror that she might be hurt. She lay on her back, eyes wide, breath shallow. Yet as he took her hand, her golden gaze lifted to meet his. She exhaled in relief, giving him a weak but genuine smile. The air around them felt different, calmer, as though a malignant presence had withdrawn. Is it over? She whispered. He nodded, helping her to her feet. I think we did it. The illusions, he broke off, glancing around. The corridors no longer flickered. The station, though alien and imposing, remained consistent in his sight. Dr. Holden and the security team approached, battered but alive. Energy readings are dropping, the scientist confirmed, wonder mingling with exhaustion. It appears the quantum distortions are collapsing. We're returning to a stable reality. The tension that had gripped them for so long began to dissolve. In that moment, Ethan and Lyra locked eyes, an unspoken joy and relief passing between them. He pulled her into a tight embrace, ignoring the battered armor of their suits. She melted against him, shaky yet resolute, and for the first time, he felt certain that they had saved not just themselves, but the intangible threads that bound them together. Whatever illusions might have existed, whatever doubts lingered, the bond they shared had transcended them all. In the aftermath, the Celestia withdrew from the storm's heart. The station, now inert, no longer spewed quantum distortions across the sector. Although the cosmic storms still raged, they were merely the natural chaos of Helion, stripped of the manipulations that had twisted them into illusions. The glitching phenomena aboard the Celestia vanished, replaced by calm corridors and stable sensor readings. Captain Voss commended the strike team for their bravery, acknowledging that they had ended a threat that, if left unchecked, could have undermined the very fabric of known reality. For days, the crew worked to finalize repairs, rechart stable navigation routes, and piece together the station's mysteries. Dr. Holden pored over the data, postulating that the device was an ancient attempt at forging a perfect universe, or perhaps bridging parallel dimensions. Regardless of its original intent, it had ensnared them in illusions that blurred the line between the real and the unreal. As the ship prepared to depart Helion sector, the final step of their mission complete, Ethan and Lyra found themselves once again in the observation deck. This time, the swirling storms seemed less ominous, even beautiful, from their vantage point. The hum of the ship's reactors soothed their senses, a reminder that they had survived, together. Lyra turned to him, the faint glow of her emerald skin catching the starlight. When we first met, I never imagined we'd face something so existential. And yet, she laughed softly, the sound tinged with lingering wonder. He stepped closer, gently tracing a hand along her cheek. And yet I can't imagine facing it with anyone else. Not anymore. Her eyes softened, shining with gratitude and affection. Ethan, I'm still unsure about many things. The illusions, the truths we uncovered, and the station's hidden secrets. But there is one thing I know for certain. Our connection is genuine. No glitch, no alien device, no cosmic storm can take that away from us. He leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to her lips. Her response was immediate, warm, and full of promise. The deck around them vanished in that moment, replaced by the encompassing warmth of love, a reality far more potent than any simulation. When at last they drew apart, the swirl of starlight outside bore witness to the silent oath they shared, to face the vast unknown together, anchored by a bond that had proven itself in the crucible of illusions and truths. They stood side by side, hand in hand, gazing at the cosmic vista. The Celestia would soon break free of the Helion sector and journey onward, ever forward, carrying them toward new discoveries. But for now, in this quiet, shimmering moment, they found a gentle, happy ending. Whatever awaited them in the deep night of space, their hearts were united, secure in the knowledge that even in a universe of illusions, love was real. And that was enough.